On Tech News Today, Google open sources its machine learning system. Plus, a big Comcast leak reveals data caps have nothing to do with conserving bandwidth. And it looks like Snapchat may be clobbering Facebook on mobile video views. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, November 9th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And by Braintree. Looking to set up payments for your business? Braintree gives your app or website a payment solution that accepts just about every payment method with one simple integration. Plus, Braintree will give you the first $50,000 in transactions fee-free. To learn more, visit BraintreePayments.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. My name is Mike Elgan, and our co-anchor today is CNET.com editor-in-chief Lindsey Turrentine. Hey, Lindsey, how you doing today?
Great, Mike. It's raining in California, and we've never been so excited about rain.
It's very, very strange as this moisture is coming out of the sky. I don't really get it. I don't really understand it. I've heard about this. I've seen it in movies. But, yeah, it is a weird thing to have there be general moisture. And so, anyway, I'm enjoying
Everything's shiny.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Cars are sliding around. It's a wonderful thing. Well, today was a kind of a weird day for Facebook in Europe. A Belgian court gave Facebook 48 hours to stop using cookies and be fined up to 250,000 euros a day. Lindsey Turrentine, the stories are going nuts on this on the social networks. But what this is really about, what they're really honked about, is that Facebook is tracking people with cookies, even if they're not members, even if they haven't signed up and don't have a Facebook account. And the European Union, Europeans in general, in terms of the regulations, are very touchy about cookies. And so this is a real issue. But is it fair that they should demand that Facebook not track people without their permission that they really have no relationship with?
I think yes. I mean, tracking people without their permission is just a creepy concept. I mean, it's true that Europeans are way more up in arms about cookies, and usually, like if you ever travel in Europe and you get all the cookie, this site, you log on from like London and you get a warning sign when you log into a website that cookies you that says, this site uses cookies, and Americans kind of roll their eyes and go, oh God, okay, sure, that's fine. But when you think about what's actually going on and the fact that Facebook is tracking you around, although you haven't signed up for the service, I think that there's something a little bit creepy going on there.
All right, let's go with creepy. Creepy it is. All right, let's jump into our regular story here. Google announced today that it's open sourcing its machine learning system, which Google calls TensorFlow. Steve Lohr is a technology reporter for the New York Times and joins us to explain what the heck is going on. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
So glad you're here to explain this. Now, what is this TensorFlow business? I was under the impression that Google had lots and lots of different kinds of machine learning. Is all of this under this TensorFlow umbrella? What is TensorFlow exactly?
Yeah, it's their framework for doing machine learning and specifically deep learning, which takes its inspiration from the way our brains detect patterns. So this is the framework for doing things, and they're open sourcling this as partly a generous gesture to the technical community and also to win hearts and minds and develop an ecosystem. I mean, all the major tech companies are essentially trying to come up with, the equivalent of an operating system for artificial intelligence. And this is Google's entry in this space to attract more people to its platform.
So, Steve, Google has historically been very good at this kind of computing. And I would love to hear a little bit more about why, but also, are competitors going to be able to take advantage of this, or are most competitors going to kind of look the other way and work on their own version of this kind of machine learning?
I mean, they can take advantage of it, but I don't think they will. Microsoft, IBM, others have their own Amazon had their own flavors of machine learning platforms that Microsoft calls it Azure machine learning. Amazon calls it Amazon machine learning. IBM's is Watson. So I think they are not going to. They'll borrow. This is a little bit like kind of standard open source. There's a huge amount of open source in Windows, for example, right? But it's ultimately that's not its platform. And I think that's going to be the same here. If there's something that they can exploit, they will and learn from it. They will use it. But ultimately, the APIs that they expose, will be not proprietary, lock you into their AI machine learning platform.
I'm not quite clear on the relationship between open sourcing something like this and open sourcing something like Android. I mean, Android kind of makes sense. They have the sort of non-open source version, and then they have the open source version, and anybody can use it, and lots of people do. And sometimes competitors use it, like Amazon, for example, uses Android to essentially clobber Google on, it replaces all the Google stuff that Google makes money on with Amazon stuff that Amazon makes money on. But in general, it's a good thing. Lots of Chinese smartphone companies use Android, and ultimately people become Android fans. They get into Android apps, and they get wrapped up in the system. Maybe the next phone is a Samsung phone or some other device that's playing ball with Google's more lockdown version of Android. I understand that. With machine learning, what's the benefit for Google to have other companies use their platform? I don't see where they get advertising revenue or any of that stuff. What's the benefit to Google?
This is, it's all about hearts and minds, and it's winning the, developers. This is a flywheel we've seen with, PC operating systems, right? Is that, the more developers build applications that use its tools, the more stuff there is around it. And the more things, machine learning fits into search, it fits into advertising, it fits into everything that is Google's money-making machine. So it's, I think it makes a lot of sense for them, particularly if they believe, as others do, that this is increasingly the way computing is going to be done in the future.
Steve, for those of us who, or those out there in the audience who may say, machine learning, okay, so I get it, machines learn how to learn and then learn. Can you give us some examples of places where Google or anyone else really has used this advanced machine learning to really move the needle in technology generally?
Yeah, the basic stuff is, the kind of earlier generation, the non-machine learning stuff is the world we know in the internet world. Amazon, Facebook, Google. Whether it's search, our ad targeting, all those things are feeding huge amounts of data, into these algorithms. They learn as they go and they get better. The deep learning side of this, which is sort of what this is more moving toward, is the breakthroughs we've seen are things like language translation, image identification, and the like. So more moving in the direction of what people think of as human senses, see, read, understand, those kinds of things, as opposed to the powerful correlations and matching patterns. This is a higher level of matching patterns than it has, and language and images are the big kind of ingredient breakthroughs over the last year or two that people have seen from this kind of technology.
And if you want to use TensorFlow, of course, you can just go to Google Photos and search for wiener dogs eating pizza. And if you have any pictures like that, they'll show up. It'll identify dog breeds and dogs and food and actions. And, it's really crazy.
Exactly.
If you can also now go to Inbox. Well, soon. I haven't gotten the new Inbox version yet with Smart Reply. Smart Reply gives you 3 possible replies, and that sounds like kind of a boring thing, but in fact what it's doing is this TensorFlow machine learning that's specifically for Google Inbox will go through word by word to understand the actual meaning of the email that you got, and then it will construct a reply word by word that has the same tone, etc. It's in theory. I haven't used it yet, but in theory, it's just mind-blowing technology. That's all under the TensorFlow umbrella, including when you do searches in the Google app, etc. Now, I think this is a really fascinating. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead. What they're giving you is sort of, the engine. These kinds of Google is not giving up its proprietary advantage, right? It still goes to, a lot of it. It's still, it still has its infrastructure, and as Gary Bradsky said, for all of these big companies, they're the giants. It's they're on the algorithm side, each is, nobody's got a huge advantage over others for long. It's what they have that others don't is the data to feed into it, right? And so there's this, all of what you're describing is in a sense almost like the apps on top of the equivalent of this operating system, right? And you come up with these models, and they become part of these applications that we've described. But there's a lot of hand work,
yeah,
right? to make the super stuff that Google and Facebook and Amazon and others come up with.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, speaking of data, Steve, you have a brand new book out there on data science called Dataism. What is this book about?
Yeah, I tried to write a kind of a narrative field guide to future we're all increasingly living in, and what we call data science is really the kind of the first use and application in the real world of the modern version of artificial intelligence. The data science comes first. The real advances in robotics come next.
Yeah, and that of course is a HarperCollins book, The Revolution Transforming Decision Making, Consumer Behavior, and Almost Everything Else. And that is a really great title. Steve Lohr, NewYorkTimes.com, and on Twitter at Steve Lohr. Lohr is spelled Lohr. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. All right, got some more news coming right up, but first I want to talk about our first sponsor, which is ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter is going to help you hire, but they're going to do a lot more than that. They've got a lot of new tools to help you do kind of HR-y kind of stuff, and they're so good at making complex things around hiring people easy and fast, and a great experience for both you and for the people that you are trying to hire. And then they're now applying that philosophy to some HR things. For example, they automate I-9s, they automate W-4s, and they provide you with all kinds of custom forms. They make it easy for you to do background checks. They have real-time process tracking and secure storage solutions. All of that stuff is all around hiring people. Now they're just helping you not only hire people, but communicate with the people you hire, manage the people you hire. It's the whole process, and I think people really, especially small businesses, really need help with this kind of thing. I mean, I read an article recently that said that so much problems exist because of a lack of communication in small businesses. Small businesses are not expert at communication. They don't really have dedicated HR departments. And so it all relies on the instincts and experience of the person who's running the business. But with ZipRecruiter, they can apply their expertise to your business, and it's super easy for you to take advantage of that expertise. Again, you probably already know that ZipRecruiter is a great way to hire. One click, and your job can go out to 100+ job boards, including social networks, and that is a great experience. But now, with all of this automation for the HR type stuff, it is so much better. They can even help you with benefits and all the rest. It's just a great service. Check it out. I mean, just go to the site, ZipRecruiter.com/TNT, and check out what they have to offer. I think you're going to be blown away. I think you're really going to be excited if you're going to be doing any hiring within the next year or two. We have a testimonial from a user named Dan who said, the hardest part about running a business when you need to hire is that you have to spend extra time recruiting while you're short-staffed. But with ZipRecruiter, I've gotten quality candidates within 24 hours of posting a job. ZipRecruiter's website makes this process so much faster by letting me manage candidates in one place. And I couldn't have said it better myself. It's a great service. You got to check it out. And of course, not only do you not need to sign up in order to check out all the stuff that they offer and how they offer it, you don't even need to pay for the first hire. You can try ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT and check out how you can use ZipRecruiter for free. We thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. Comcast is getting ready for a nationwide rollout of a new plan that charges extra when customers use more than 300 gigabytes of data per month. The news hit the social networks after internal Comcast documents leaked online. Jason Abbruzzese writes for Mashable and joins us to talk about it. Hey, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Thanks for coming on. Now, what is this new plan? For example, how much more do customers have to pay when they exceed the cap?
Sure. Well, it depends on, how much you exceed the cap and how much you're willing to pay. If you want to keep your, unlimited internet access and not have to worry about how much you're using, it's going to cost you another $30. Basically, the way it works is people who, just had an existing plan, well, all of a sudden they're going to get a cap on on their usage. What we've seen is mostly around 300 gigabytes, which is, a good amount of data. If you're just one person, streaming a couple television shows every once in a while, you probably won't hit it. But, if you're a family of four, that can get tight. So after that, you have to pay, I think it's about $10 for another 50 gigs. You can pay another $10 for another 50 gigs after that. So, there's technically no cap. They're not going to stop you from consuming the internet. They're just going to start charging you when you use a lot of it.
So who do you think is going to have the biggest problem here? You mentioned families, large families, maybe getting a little bit stifled. Is this going to become more and more of a problem as people stream more of their media, as 4K comes online? Maybe, I can imagine virtual reality will make this a nightmare for everybody. How quickly do you think everyone's prices are going to go up?
Oh, yeah. If you have, two people in a household that are streaming a reasonable amount of stuff, whether it be, obviously mostly video is going to be the killer, the high quality video. And especially, if you try to stream a couple 4K movies, that's going to eat up data super fast. You don't have to worry so much about browsing or even music streaming. Even certain forms of gaming aren't that huge. But this is really, leveled, primarily at cable cutters. If you're in a household where you have more than one person consuming, streaming video, it's going to add up fast.
And it's going to cause family arguments too, because it's, at least with the smart, this is essentially the smartphone model that a lot of companies are using in the smartphone model. I, for one, am grandfathered in at AT&T, which is the only reason I'm clinging to that plan with all I've got. Because what's going to happen is, they're going to get, the family's going to get this massive bill. It's going to be double the normal bill, and everybody's going to start screaming at each other. Oh, you watched this. Well, you played that game, and you downloaded this, and you did that, it seems like the wrong kind of plan for something that's a shared resource within a family among a number of people. But that's something that we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Now, a lot of the press on this is centering around the idea that these caps, which are normally justified by saying, "Oh, we have to conserve bandwidth." When everybody's using lots of bandwidth, we have to cap people in order to make sure that there's plenty of bandwidth for everybody, and that's why we do it. And these leaked documents seem to reveal that has nothing to do with why the caps are in place. And Comcast talks about things like fairness and offering a more flexible policy. What do you think the outcome of, what's your take on this, I guess, is what I'm saying. Are they exposing the fact that these caps are kind of bogus?
Yeah, if you want to play devil's advocate and see it from Comcast's side, what you say is, just like how you pay your power bill. Everybody pays a different amount for how much they pay for their electricity depending on how much they use. It's just a fair system that way. If my neighbor is using, twice as much power as me, I don't want to have to subsidize, that by paying a higher bill. My bill should be lower, his should be higher. Where that starts falling apart is in the sense that, there is not any real good evidence showing that more, using more internet data, streaming more movies is necessarily making for a poorer experience overall. We've seen, investments in build outs of this capacity. So it really just does become a question of if the company's not even claiming anymore that it needs to do this to handle its network and make it so that everybody, has a good internet experience, then what does this really come down to? Because, it's not really impacting my life. I don't find it unfair if my neighbor streams more movies than I do. As long as I have the option to do that, I'm fine with it. So, people have kind of seized upon that as an example of possibly Comcast, misleading people and trying to use an excuse of network congestion. It's tough to say. I think that if you're in Comcast's corner, it's a pretty simple argument of usage versus what's fair to everybody to pay. But at the same time, I think we've all become accustomed to the internet just being the internet. You use it as much as you want. It's kind of like the water utility in that sense.
So Jason, I think I know the answer to this question. Do you think there will be massive outrage?
It's one of those things that we've seen things like this come about and you think oh, nobody's going to stand for this. And then, it just kind of becomes part of the billing cycle and it can disappear very quickly. I think Comcast is very smart. They're going to roll this out very slowly, very quietly until, you get to the point where all of a sudden, it's kind of commonplace. I think plenty of people are going to get super angry. You're going to see plenty of people on Reddit and on the internet, yelling about this and how, unfair it is. But, one of the other problems we have is most people don't have a lot of ISP choices. So, if Comcast starts putting you on this plan, there's not that much you can do. You just kind of have to start paying it. The only way we're going to see any serious pushback if there is kind of like a very organized, massive kind of revolt against this, or if Google Fiber starts going everywhere, which I think is what most people are hoping at this point.
Plus, if you've got some complaints against Comcast, there's already a line that's been forming for a couple of years, so get in line. And like you mentioned, they're rolling this out gradually. DSLreport.com said that they're rolling it out first in Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Virginia. So you, gentle viewers, are the first victims of this plan. Can't wait to see how much you don't love it. All right, Jason Abbruzzese is at Mashable.com and on Twitter at Jason Abbruzzese. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, good talk to you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. In product update news, Pinterest today announced a visual search tool that actually lets you search for items in a photo. The new tool launches tomorrow. It works when you draw a box around a lamp or a pair of shoes or some other object in a photo, and then you can run the search based on what you drew a box around. The results are going to be other people's pins, and so matches may lead you to where you can buy it. Lindsey Turrentine, this is yet another awesome search feature, and it's perfect for Pinterest because, of course, Pinterest users, don't mean to stereotype people, but Pinterest users tend to be really interested in buying stuff.
Well, I think it is the coolest thing ever.
There you go.
You know, not even so much because I want to buy stuff. I mean, because I want this to filter out onto the broader internet. I want to be able to do this anywhere. I want to be able to do this on, Facebook post or something I just saw on a website somewhere and say, oh my God, that's beautiful. I want to find it. And I hope Google takes some notes here, because although you can do some of this on Google, it's a lot harder to just say this thing.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I do too. And the proof is in the pudding. We'll see how this actually works in real life. Of course, with Google image search, you can take a photo that's either on your system that you can upload, or you can find a picture that's on the internet and just kind of drag and drop it into Google image search, and it will find, it's not looking for the object necessarily. I mean, it kind of does, but it's mostly looking for the shapes and the colors and the lighting and stuff like that. So if you, for example, you find an orange, umbrella and you import it, well, you're going to get orange umbrellas, you're going to get orange other things that are kind of roundish, you're going to get all kinds of stuff that match the colors and the sort of style of the photo. And if this does that sort of thing, then it's not going to work exactly as advertised. But if, on the other hand, it's more sophisticated than that, it can really, it kind of ignores the colors and that sort of thing and zeroes in on what the actual object is, and in fact the actual specific object, then that would be absolutely killer for Pinterest users, and for anyone who wants to sell stuff using Pinterest. So it's a great incentive for companies to post their stuff on Pinterest, because of course, if you search for that lamp and you want to, the first result, you want it to be the company that sells the lamps with a link to where you can buy it. That would be amazing, but that's not going to happen unless you, the lamp company, are on Pinterest. And so it's a huge incentive.
I think this also competes in a kind of a funny way against Houzz. I don't know if you've ever used that site, but
I used to write for Houzz.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are a lot of sort of embedded price tag features on Houzz that kind of remind me of this, but are less sophisticated. And if Pinterest can corner this, then they get a real advantage.
Yeah, and Houzz is a fantastic site. And it does compete with Pinterest, sort of, kind of, for the eyeballs and that sort of thing, but only in the area they specialize in decoration and things like that. Whereas Pinterest is clothes and all kinds of stuff that Houzz never gets anywhere near. But of course, like you say, if you're like into kitchen cabinets and kitchen supplies, and in my case, I used to write about home tech and home automation and stuff like that. It's all on Houzz. It's also all on Pinterest. So go figure. For people who are super into home decoration, Houzz is probably a better site, in my opinion. But you're absolutely right about that. They do that really well at Houzz. All right, in our insecurity segment, the National Security Agency posted an infographic saying that the NSA shares the details of about 91% of the security flaws it finds. It was essentially bragging and defending itself against criticisms that it doesn't share that type of data. But what that means, what 91% means, is that the NSA keeps quiet on about 9% of the flaws it finds. And they say that it's either because these flaws are fixed by vendors or for what the NSA considers national security reasons. That's right. Sometimes they leave a security vulnerability out there unpatched, unreported, because they do it for national security reasons. But according to a piece by Reuters, that's a bit misleading. They say that their sources say the NSA often exploits the flaw first, and then they report them, when they're done. So this 91% is kind of like, well, the real question is, when do they report it? How long do they take to report these things? In some cases, it's a long period of time after they've had their way with the exploit. So pretty interesting, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't know what we don't know about what they're doing.
That's right.
And that's always scary.
The NSA lives in the realm of the unknown unknowns. That's their specialty. We got some big numbers for you coming right up, but first I want to talk about Braintree, one of our sponsors today. Braintree is the place if you want to process payments for your site. If you're selling products or services on a website or on a mobile app, you have to use Braintree. You really have to use Braintree. There's really nothing else like it, and it's so easy to use. In the old days, and by which I mean a few years ago, you'd have to, if you want to process payments, it was a big pain in the neck. You had to go from you had to go to this company and that financial services company and that credit card company, and one by one. And pretty much the reason, because of that, most websites used to just be able to take one or two things. Oh, we only take these 2 credit cards, or we only take the credit cards and PayPal. We don't take this other stuff. Braintree cancels that entire problem, because with a few lines of code, you can take everything. You can take, you name it. You can take Apple Pay, of course. You can take Venmo. You can take all the credit cards. You can take Android Pay, Apple Pay, like I said, even Bitcoin. I love the fact that you can take Bitcoin. It's just automatic. It's just there. You don't even have to think about Bitcoin. You don't have to worry about Bitcoin. You just use Braintree. And if any of your customers or potential customers want to use Bitcoin, they can just go ahead and use Bitcoin. That's the great thing about it. It's not only easy for your customers, but it's super easy for you. And I think the most important thing about Braintree, despite all the convenience, I mean, the convenience is super important. If you have an app or a website, you're trying to sell things, super important. But I think the most important thing is that they get rid of mobile cart abandonment. So many people, it's such a frustrating, widespread problem that isn't really appreciated enough. But basically, people go and they want to use a product or service, and they start to do the payment process, and at some point they go, forget it. I'm not going to do this. I can't enter in all this data. I'm unwilling to provide this or that. I don't know what this piece of information is. Something happened to my browser halfway through the process, and so I'm not going to start over, et cetera, et cetera. We've all been through it. So we've all abandoned carts. I've abandoned many carts in my day. And with Braintree payments, of course, that doesn't happen because it's so easy. You just go in there and the payments are always as easy as a payment can possibly be. And that's the beauty of it. And so your customers will get what they're looking for. They will pay the money that they want to pay for your product or service, and everybody is happy. Braintree gives you a full stack payment solution, support for all payments types that your customers might want, a single integration across all platforms with superior fraud protection, customer service, and super fast payouts. To check it out for yourself, visit BraintreePayments.com/TNT. Well, here's our big number today, 6 billion. This is a mind blower, folks. That's how many video views Snapchat is claiming for each and every day, according to a report in the Financial Times. Now, what does that mean? That would bring Snapchat close to Facebook's claimed 8 billion video views a day. And because Snapchat is mobile only, if this information is accurate, Snapchat is probably exceeding Facebook's mobile-only video views. Lindsey, Turrentine, this is mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. I'm a little bit skeptical, partially because I think it kind of depends on how you define a video, right?
And also a view.
And a view, absolutely. I mean, Snapchat, certainly the format is often video, but it can be very short. It can be very, very momentary and obviously disappearing. So I think that from a monetization standpoint, right? Like what you do with that video and what it's worth, it might be a completely different story than a video that gets a view on Facebook. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think there's something to what you're saying. Definitely, Facebook is shooting for those YouTube-like videos, and in this case, it could be just teenage sexting or something. I know they have a reputation for that, but that's in the news again these days. And so, who knows what these videos are? They are they animated GIFs? What are these videos? And by the way, how do you prove it? Oh, show us. Oh, no, sorry, they all vanished right after they were viewed. So sorry, there's no evidence. We just take our word for it. Essentially, this information was surfaced by the Financial Times, and then it was later verified. And then somebody in the company actually said, yeah, that's pretty accurate, actually. So anyway, we'll hopefully get to the bottom of this, but I think it is interesting that somebody is successfully possibly competing with Facebook in one small way. Normally, Facebook just wins everything, all the eyeballs. And so it's great to see that somebody is kind of fighting back successfully. Well, we got some email from a TNT fan named James Strout in Oslo, Norway. And he points out that I mentioned on the show that VR is not the right terminology for headsets and drones with HD video. I basically casually mentioned the fact that, why do we call it virtual reality when it's video, And he wrote, how about the term offset reality, OR, for immersive and interactive real-time video? Let us know what you think of his idea. Should we call it offset reality instead of virtual reality when the content is actually video, that's 360-degree video? Send us email to tnt@twit.tv and let us know what you think that should be called, whether you agree with this idea. And from James Strout in Oslo, Norway. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Larry Ball, who posted this picture on Instagram. And there we are. It's the beginning of the show. And what I'm fascinated about by this, Lindsey, are those Pepe Le Pew stuffed animals all over the place?
Where?
All over. Is that Pepe Le Pew?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is.
All right.
Yes, it is. Pepe Le Pew. Wrong country, though. Shouldn't that be France?
Well, I don't. Could be.
Joking.
Could be. What this must make this guy also has some cats, and those things must make the cats nervous. If you recall, Pepe. Anyway, show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. One quick note about that: we're still not getting very many of these things on Facebook. I don't know. It's supposed to be the biggest social network in the history of mankind, and yet all of our pictures and videos show up on Instagram, Twitter, Google+, and even elsewhere. Sometimes we get email. But Facebook, we got a bunch of Facebook ones, and then all of a sudden they sort of like stop. So if you're on Facebook, if you use Facebook and you want to post a How I Watch TNT item, please do so and make sure you hashtag it so we can find it, etc. And we appreciate that. Lindsey Turrentine, what is CNET, the digital-only, formerly digital-only website, up to these days? And I'm sort of hinting at what you're going to tell us all about.
Yes. So, okay. We've talked about it, that CNET has a print magazine. It's quarterly, and it's awesome. It is an award-winning magazine. It's out on newsstands again for this quarter. It's our special buying guide issue. But the coolest thing is that our cover is just phenomenal. This issue has 2 covers, both with John Boyega, who's the new star of the upcoming Star Wars movie. There's a newsstand version with a great cover, but then there's an amazing collector's edition version too that you can get as a subscriber and in some special places. And we also have posted some of this imagery and the cover story online. You can check that out on CNET right now.
Very cool. The New York Times had, as we reported previously, a virtual reality, Google Cardboard goggles that came with the paper yesterday. I subscribed to the printed edition of the New York Times, believe it or not, and I got the Google, the Google Cardboard things, and it worked just as I expected. The whole thing was okay. I mean, it was the actual content was okay. I don't think they fully used the medium. But when are you guys going to bundle Google Cardboard with CNET magazine?
It has come up. We have.
Really?
It's something that we have discussed, but you have to stay tuned for that.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Lindsey Turrentine, thank you so much for co-anchoring today, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. Let us know what's on your mind. Send us email to tnt@twit.tv. You can call us at 260-TNT-SHOW. That number is 260-868-7469. You can subscribe to Tech News Today via RSS, of course, or you can choose another way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1700 UTC at twit.tv/live. And you can also join our Google Plus community. Just go to the community area of Google Plus and search for Tech News Today. You can follow me personally at elgan.com. Don't miss our other news show, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific every single weeknight. And that is the Tech News Today. The show is produced by Jason Clanthis and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.